All right, let's get to Mexico.
This comes after reports from the Associated Press saying that the Mexican army killed El Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Ottawa is warning Canadians in Jalisco State, including Puerto Vallarta, that criminal groups have set up roadblocks with burning vehicles in the area. Here's a look at the advisory on the Global Affairs website. It says in part that there have been shootouts with security forces and explosions, adding that all taxi and rideshare services have been suspended until further notice. It goes on to tell people in the state to keep a low profile, monitor local and international media to stay informed, and follow the advice of local authorities.
So there was also some misinformation that came out as well. I retweeted it from the Mexican government, that the misinformation that came out that the Mexican government actually identified. Laura Loomer, CBS News, and numerous other outlets were just like saying that there was like a coordination with the Americans. And Claudia Sheinbaum says the Secretary of National Defense reported on the operation carried out this morning by federal forces, which resulted in various blockades and other reactions. There is absolute coordination with the governments of all states. We must remain informed and calm. The social media account of the Security Cabinet provide permanent updates in the vast majority of national territory. Activities are proceeding with complete normality. My recognition, the Mexican Army, National Guard, Armed Forces, and Security Cabinet. We work every day for peace, security, justice, and the well-being of Mexico. Embassy of Mexico in the U.S. This post is false. The military operation in Tapalpa, Jalisco, aimed at capturing Ruben and Elias Mencho, was planned and executed by the Mexican Special Forces. The action was carried out within the framework of bilateral cooperation with the U.S. authorities, providing complementary intelligence. Mexican National Guard and Army troops are currently reinforcing security in Jalisco and neighboring states to maintain order. Because Laura Loomer claimed that the U.S. eliminated a top cartel leader in Mexico, Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, has retaliated by storming the Guadalajara airport with armed gunmen. They are now taking the American tourists hostage in nearby hotels and highways. Laura Loomer is doing fake news across the board internationally. Laura Loomer is not a credible source of news. Yeah, no shit. But yeah, as it stands, like basically what ended up happening is they assassinated, well, they tried to arrest El Mencho, who from what I understand is one of the biggest cartel leaders in Mexico right now. And Mexico, unfortunately, regardless of the wonderful work that Morena has done, is basically like a narco state, right? Like different territories are owned by different cartels. And she has been working at tackling this problem for a while. And the Morena party has actually got a lot of support from the population due to all of the expansion of the welfare state, like all the developmentary projects that they're engaging in. And yes, they were the biggest, was the biggest. Defense Mexico informs the public that through Central Military Intelligence efforts from the National Intelligence Center and the Attorney General's Office, FEMDO, Special Forces of the Mexican Army planned and executed an operation in Tapalpa, Jalisco, in which various aircraft from the Air Force and the National Guard's immediate reaction Special Force intervened to achieve detention of Ruben and Mencho. During this operation, military personnel were attacked, so in defense of their integrity, they repelled the aggression, resulting in 4 members of the CJNG criminal group dead at the scene and 3 seriously injured, who lost their lives during their transfer via air to Mexico City. Among the latter is Ruben N., also known as Mencho. However, the corresponding authorities will handle all expert activities for their identification. In addition to the above, 2 other members of this criminal organization were detained and various weaponry and armored vehicles were seized, including rocket launchers capable of downing aircraft and destroying armored vehicles. Where do you think they get that from, chat? Us. We. Our special forces. Our military. Okay? That's why we say that a lot of the cartels are either directly or indirectly involved with the American Special Forces, the CIA, the DEA, depending on which cartel you're looking at. We give them these weapons and they're geared out the wazoo. How did our weapons get to them? What do you mean? UPS, motherfucker. What are you talking about? How do you think drug trafficking and human trafficking works? They traffic drugs and they get, in exchange for the drugs that they send to the United States of America, they get weapons in return. That's the whole ordeal. We are responsible. I know everybody says, oh, Hasan, you say America bad, America bad, America bad, but like we are quite literally responsible for our own demise and the demise of Mexico. We destabilize a major country that is right there to the south of our border, that we have a long ass border with. We destabilize the out of that country and we keep it under control. It's the same destabilization principle that we have applied, that European colonists have applied in both Africa and in the MENA region in general. It's the same thing that we've done in Latin America, okay? Foment sectarian infighting, but in the circumstance of Mexico, instead of creating sectarian infighting, they just have competing interests between different cartels that seize control over entire territories of the country. This weakens the state apparatus. This causes the state to never fully become a sovereign state. And while we're doing that, obviously there's a ton of people that try to escape that violence and come to the United States of America. And this creates an unlimited faucet, low wage labor that can destabilize the American labor market. It's a win-win. ATF gunwalking scandal. Gunwalking, or letting guns walk, was a tactic used by the Arizona U.S. Attorney's Office and Arizona Field Office of the United States Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which ran a series of sting operations between 2006 and 2011 in the Tucson and Phoenix area, where the ATF purposely allowed licensed firearms dealers to sell weapons to illegal straw buyers, hoping to track the guns to Mexican drug cartels leaders and arrest them. These operations were done under the umbrella Project Gunrunner, a project intended to stem the flow of firearms into Mexico by interdicting straw purchases and gun traffickers within the United States. The Jacob Chambers case began in October 2009 and eventually became known in February 2010 as Operation Fast and Furious, after agents discovered Chambers and other suspects under investigation belonged to a car club. Each weapon was equipped with a GPS unit initially installed by the El Paso Intelligence Center, later purchased at local electronics shop by the ATF. Critically, the GPS battery life was only a few days, and the GPS weapon tracker signal was routinely lost, especially in car trucks. The lack of technical sophistication and failure of GPS trackers were the major reasons for Fast and Furious's failure as an ATF operation. But this is not even what I'm talking about, because this is a lack of interagency cooperation. Because if they wanted to figure out who was running the guns, they would go to JSOC. They would go to the CIA. They would go to the DEA and be like, who are you giving these guns to? All of these biggest cartels are directly farming from the Mexican army, Mexican federal law enforcement that are getting trained by Americans or have directly been trained by Americans, and then they form their own cartels. Like Zetas are straight up trained by JSOC. Bro, they're just wealthy Latinos who do that shit in America for fun because they have money, and we can LARP like that here. I'm not shocked that the cartel would have that shit too. Chatter, these guys are not LARPing. They are ruthless killers. They have drones. They have anti-drone weaponry. Like, they're not around. Yeah, Los Zetas is the cartel you're thinking of. They got trained by JSOC and then instantly went rogue. Went rogue. Los Zetas. Rafael Caro Quintero worked for Miguel Nazar Haro, the Fort Bragg trained Mexican security official who, with CIA backing, organized the cartel system in Mexico. Right-wing CIA paramilitaries trained at Caro Quintero's ranch and made hefty donations to the Nicaraguan Contras. There are very few elements within the cartel structure in Mexico that are not directly intertwined with the American State Department. Claudia Sheinbaum has basically, within the confines of diplomacy, said as much. It's like a known secret in Mexico that a lot of these paramilitaries are either directly trained by American Special Forces, they are, without realizing, indirectly tied back to different agencies, different departments, okay? Think of a cartel like a fascist militia. The irony, of course, is that in order to keep them sustainable, the marketplace is the United States of America. Yes, they dominate Mexican politics and they operate within the confines of Mexico, but their major market is the United States of America. Okay? It's insane. Here is the CJNG, the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG fields weapons and gear rivaling some armies, armored vehicles, tactical equipment, modern rifles. The ones I saw also have a feeder to like bullet backpack. You know what I'm talking about? That allows them to shoot unlimited bullets basically without reloading. Like it's crazy. You know how like sometimes you can do a belt feed? It's not even like a Gatling gun. They've taken like an AR-15. It's not an M60. They'll take like an AR-15 and put a belt feeder on the AR-15 that is fed into a backpack, because a belt fed machine gun is still going to have, bullet limitations. These guys are basically doing Helldiver in real life. They modify their weapons. It's crazy. So some of these armored trucks are basically same as ISIS tacticals, because modern warfare has evolved so much and it's actually very fast paced and very dynamic. A lot of the guys use drones now as well. Drone warfare is like a major part of this now. Ukraine obviously proved that as well. But warfare has become like infinitely cheaper to conduct as well. So when they say they got like armored vehicles, they're talking about like They're basically talking about the same thing that like ISIS has, like technicals. They have crazy gear. They have crazy methods. Timu ass gear, brother. What are you talking about? This Timu ass gear is literally what is being deployed in Ukraine right now. If it's good enough for the Russian military, if it's good enough for the Ukrainian military, if it's good enough for ISIS, it's good enough for them. It gets the job done, you know? So this is Chris Hedges, friend of the show, talking to other friend of the show, Seth Harp, about his book that he wrote specifically about drug trafficking and murder in the special forces. Seth Harp wrote the book, Fort Bragg Cartel.
To the countries that are victimized by these forms of imperialism. The Los Zetas were trained by the special forces. It's a Mexican special forces unit that was trained by the U.S. Green Berets, including at Fort Bragg, also at Fort Benning, and they also were trained by Israeli instructors. And they were meant to be in the mold of the Green Berets.
Guess where CJNG trained as got their military experience? Just to show that we're always ahead of the game. We posted the CJNG training in Ukraine in September. Members of the Mexican drug cartel Jalisco New Generacion have undergone combat training in Ukraine on how to operate drones, according to Mexico's Milenio newspaper, citing law enforcement sources in the Jalisco state. CJNG fighters reportedly traveled to Ukraine, where they learned modern warfare tactics, including precision strikes with UAVs. Training took place directly in the conflict zone, giving cartel members real battlefield experience. Their movement in pairs, use of cover, weapons handling, and retreat tactics now mirror combat methods typical of high-intensity warfare. Milenio notes that CJNG already employs drones in clashes with rival cartels and government forces, carrying out airstrikes on remote areas. The group is said to be forming specialized combat units, at least 10 men, each capable of simultaneously operating 2 explosive-laden drones. Their tactics increasingly resemble those of guerrilla organizations. The drones used are civilian models. Reports mention the DJI Matris 300 RTK, also deployed in Ukraine for dropping anti-tank grenades, as one of the UAVs adapted by the cartel for combat operations. Formed in 2009, they're the biggest exporters of fentanyl into the United States, said to have up to 10,000 armed members, involved heavily in the international drug trade into Europe and U.S., been growing quickly since the 2010s. Jalisco Way, present in all 32 Mexican states, most influential in Jalisco, Nayarit, Colima, Veracruz, in direct competition with the Sinaloa cartel, have been known to field technical type vehicles and drones. You didn't grow up in Mexico if you didn't see videos of what they were doing in peak terror. I mean, I've seen videos of what they've done in peak terror. I didn't grow up in Mexico, but I did see the videos. That's why I'm saying, like, you know, these guys don't f around. I mean, they are basically like what the American military without any sort of JAG structure, the American military without any attorneys, okay? Like, imagine some of the worst shit that the American Marines get up to in places that we dominate, but this time everyone's doing it, and actually it's welcomed. Think about like what the special forces do in terms of what the special forces do, what they get up to when they want to wreak havoc. Now, assume that they have no control over some of their most violent ambitions, and as a matter of fact, it's rewarded, it's welcomed, it's a good thing, because then it's a part of the psyop. Their ruthlessness is a part of their power. Like, they do not shy away from murdering oppositional figures, dissidents, people in high-ranking positions of power in the government, in the police force. Anyone and everyone that actually opposes them in some meaningful capacity will get destroyed. They'll get tortured. They literally chop their heads off. They do horrible, which is ironic because that's precisely what the American Special Forces do. That's literally what the American Special Forces do, and that's what this book is about. This book is literally about the Mexican cartels and how they learned to do this from our guys, okay? From our freaks, our weirdos. JSOC operations is literally just an international cartel. International cartel with unlimited funding from the American government, from the Pentagon, that then is a self-sustaining operation because they do, you know, they secure assets for international criminal organizations. Oh, I think it was literally a month ago where Claudia Sheinbaum came out and revealed this report. Mexican cartels overpower police with ammunition made from the U.S. military. Drug syndicates have used 50 caliber ammunition produced at a plant owned by the U.S. Army and smuggled across the border in attacks on Mexican civilians and police. I believe like 50 to 70% of all of their munitions come directly from almost all of their guns come from America, but I think like 50% of their munitions directly come from the Army, okay? It's insane. Yeah, see? They have the same belt-fed backpack. You know, we are, yet again, at the heart of the story. We are a cancerous entity. Could be a psyop. Abusing uniforms for false flags is what RWDs do best in the region. Oh, yeah, they have all of the Chinese weapons, too, for the record. I mean, they have the 50 cal. But then they also have the, anti-drone weapons as well. Not only do they have the anti-drone weapons, they have also drones. They impersonate Los Federales. Last time I was stopped by a cartel, they were pretending to be sheriffs. So yeah, they have all the gear in the world. They have all the weapons. They have the training. If you know anything about the way that the United States of America operates, if you know anything about our entanglements and our support and our utilization of groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS in areas that we have interest in destabilizing, you would understand why the cartels operate the way that they do in Mexico. We need to get Hamas hooked up with some of this stuff? No. The very fact that Hamas will never have some of this stuff implies that they are not within America's realm of interest. That's the whole point. It's not an accident that the Palestinian resistance doesn't have any of this equipment, and yet all these other terrorist organizations do. Think, chatter. Think. That's the kind of the point, you know? It's not a coincidence, dude. It's not a coincidence. They're like, when you look at the ISIS guys, they're some of the most geared motherfuckers out there on the field. How did that happen? I mean, FSA is basically the more official version of that. It's like the same international Salafist brigade that the Turkish government is arming and training. It's because we are giving them the guns and we are giving them the training. We are teaching them how to use the guns that we're giving them. Yeah, meanwhile, 17-year-olds are making bathtub rockets with like unexploded ordnance from the Israeli side in the Gaza Strip, and like hand-dropped improvised explosive devices that they dump inside of a tank because the guys inside, the rear admiral, brigadier generals inside, think it's too hot because the tank doesn't have AC, so they keep the lid open. Why are you talking about Los Zetas? The reason why I was bringing up Los Zetas specifically is because it's one where we know there's direct involvement with the American Special Forces in terms of training. The different cartels have different interests. They compete against one another. They sometimes wage war against one another. But that is a destabilizing factor that makes it much harder for the state of Mexico, to control their own country. Okay? I'm saying almost all of these cartels, if not all of these cartels, have some degree of connection to at least one aspect of American federal law enforcement, an agency. Some are CIA, some are DEA, some are ATF, but there's always some level of connection, and many are also JSOC. Like, for example, a lot of these cartels hire people from the Mexican army or like the federal government. They will go and poach talent from federal law enforcement that gets training in the United States of America. They do joint task forces. They do stuff like that. They do joint training operations. And then basically these guys will go to them and be like, you want to join the cartel? We'll give you a lot more money. So then they join the cartel. So that's an indirect involvement that the American government and American law enforcement has with the cartels that way. Why did Trump want her to crack down on them, though? Is he's trying to destabilize Mexico or what? No, the cartel's existence. It's like saying ISIS is operating in Syria. We got to go to Syria. It's the same. Hello? ISIS is operating in Syria. We got to go bomb Syria. We got to go and train the forces on the ground in Syria. It's the same principle for Donald Trump. Anyway, during this operation, Mexican military personnel were attacked, and in defense of their physical integrity, they repelled the aggression. This resulted in 4 members of the CJNG, including Mencho, to die. In addition, 2 members of the criminal organization were arrested, and various weapons and armored vehicles were seized, including rocket launchers capable of shooting down aircraft. Unfortunately, during this military action, 3 members of the institution were wounded and were likewise transferred to the medical facilities in Mexico City for emergency medical care. In addition to central military intelligence efforts, complementary information was provided by U.S. authorities within the framework of bilateral coordination and cooperation with the United States. At this time, elements of the Mexican National Guard and Mexican Army troops from center of the country and states neighboring Jalisco are mobilizing to reinforce security of the state. With these actions, the Secretary of the National Defense reaffirms his commitment to contributing to the strengthening of Mexico's security, Mexican Army, Air Force, and National Guard, the great force of Mexico.